far from the throne of Cronus, far from the stone halls of Titan rule, far from the reach of fear. The future grew in silence. Beneath the mountains of Crete, hidden within caves older than memory, the child slept, not as a prince, not as a god, not as a ruler, but as something far more dangerous. Possibility. Cronus believed the prophecy had weakened. 6 times he had acted. 6 times he had prevented the future. 6 times he had felt the tension in the world release like breath leaving a body, and so he ruled with growing certainty. But certainty is the final illusion before collapse. While Cronus sat upon his throne believing time stood still, time continued to move elsewhere. Quietly, patiently, inevitably, the caves of Crete became a hidden world, a world outside the reach of Titans, a world protected not by armies, but by silence. Zeus did not cry like ordinary children. Even as an infant, there was strength in him, a presence difficult to describe, as if the air itself adjusted around him. When he slept, the cave seemed calmer. When he stirred, the air seemed alive. When he opened his eyes, even the shadows seemed to move differently. Gaia watched, not from above, but from beneath, through stone, through earth, through roots older than Titans themselves. This child would live, not because fate demanded it, but because the world itself had chosen him. Rhea visited in secret, her journeys hidden by darkness and distance. Each time she returned, the child had grown, stronger, more aware, more present, and each time she left, the separation grew harder. But love alone could not protect him. Protection required guardians, and guardians came. The Curetes arrived quietly, warriors not of great renown, but of unwavering loyalty. They came not for glory, not for power, but for purpose. Their armor was simple, their weapons worn, their strength practical, but their devotion absolute. They understood what must be done. If Cronus ever heard the child, everything would end. And so the Curetes created sound, not gentle sound, not music, noise. They struck their shields with spears, again and again, day after day, night after night, rhythmic thunder within the mountains. To any distant listener, it would sound like storm and stone, like shifting earth, like natural noise. But within the caves, it drowned every cry, every movement, every breath of the hidden child. Zeus grew surrounded by this thunder. The rhythm became familiar, comforting, constant, the sound of protection. He learned to walk upon uneven stone, learned to climb before he could run, learned to balance upon narrow ledges. The caves became his world, darkness his companion, stone his teacher. But even hidden worlds cannot remain still. Growth demands expansion. Zeus began to explore, slowly at first, guided by watchful eyes, then farther, more confidently. He showed no fear of height, no fear of darkness, no fear of silence, only curiosity. And curiosity is the first sign of destiny. Meanwhile, Cronus began to feel something he could not name, not fear, not yet, but disturbance, small irregularities, moments where certainty faltered, moments where silence felt too complete, moments where order felt slightly imperfect. He dismissed them, as rulers often do, but unease is patient. Cronus walked his halls more frequently, paused longer at windows, listened more carefully to distant winds. Something was changing. He could feel it, even if he did not understand it. And far away, in hidden caves, the cause of that change continued to grow. Zeus' strength increased quickly, too quickly, even for a god. By the time he reached early childhood, he already moved with unusual control, climbed with unnatural ease, observed with unsettling attention. The Curetes began to notice, and what they noticed filled them with quiet awe. The child was not merely growing, he was preparing. Sometimes he would stand at the cave entrance, looking out across the distant sea, silent, still, watching something no one else could see, as if the horizon spoke to him, as if the future called. And deep within the earth, Gaia felt it. The prophecy had survived. Now, It had begun to awaken. Zeus did not know the world beyond the mountains. He did not know the Titans. He did not know the throne of Cronus. He did not know the prophecy that had shaped his life before he had taken his first breath. But destiny does not require knowledge. It requires growth. The caves of Crete had been his first world. Stone walls rising like ancient guardians. Narrow paths twisting through darkness. Torchlight dancing across uneven rock. The constant rhythm of shields echoing through the mountains. To Zeus, this was not imprisonment. It was home. He ran across the stone floors with the confidence of someone born to belong there. He climbed steep ledges with steady hands. He moved through shadows without hesitation. The Curetes watched him carefully, not as soldiers watching a prince, but as men witnessing something they could not fully understand. They had guarded kings before, protected nobles, served rulers. But this child felt different. He did not demand attention. He did not seek praise. He did not behave as though he expected obedience. Instead, he watched, learned, adapted. Even as a young child, Zeus listened more than he spoke. When the warriors trained, he sat nearby, observing, measuring, remembering. When they sparred with spears and shields, his eyes followed every movement, every shift in balance, every strike, every defense. He did not imitate immediately. He waited, and then, when no one expected it, he moved. One of the Curetes handed him a small wooden staff one afternoon, a harmless gesture, a child's toy. Zeus held it quietly for a moment, turning it slowly in his hands, testing its weight, feeling its balance. Then he stepped forward and struck, not wildly, not clumsily, but precisely. The staff moved through the air with surprising control. A clean arc, a balanced step, a measured strike. The Curetes exchanged glances, silent understanding passing between them. The child was learning faster than he should, and speed of learning is a sign of inherited power. Zeus did not understand why the warriors watched him differently after that day, but he noticed. He noticed everything. He noticed the way the mountains changed color at sunset, the way wind moved differently across the cliffs, the way storms formed over distant waters. Sometimes he would sit alone near the cave entrance, watching the horizon. The sea stretched endlessly before him, a vast moving boundary between worlds. He did not know what lay beyond it, but something inside him stirred whenever he looked upon its surface, as though memory existed before experience, as though recognition came before knowledge. The Curetes allowed him to explore farther as he grew older, still watched, still protected, but less closely. He moved through the mountain paths with growing confidence, learning every turn, every slope, every hidden passage. He knew where water flowed from the rocks, where the safest footholds lay, where the winds grew strongest. The mountain became part of him, and he became part of the mountain. Gaia felt his steps through the stone, felt his presence like a steady pulse within the earth. The child was growing, not only in strength, but in awareness. Meanwhile, far away, Cronus felt something he could no longer ignore. The unease had grown, no longer faint, no longer dismissible. It lingered at the edges of his thoughts, followed him through his halls, sat beside him upon his throne. He did not speak of it. Rulers rarely confess uncertainty, but his movements changed. He began calling his advisors more frequently, questioning reports more closely, examining distant regions with renewed attention. Nothing appeared unusual. Nothing seemed out of place. Nothing suggested danger. And yet, the disturbance remained. Cronus began to dream, not clearly, not consistently, but enough to unsettle him. Dreams of shifting stone, dreams of distant thunder, dreams of unseen footsteps. He would wake with certainty that something had moved beyond his sight. Fear had once driven him to action. Now it drove him to vigilance. But vigilance cannot see what destiny hides. And destiny remained hidden in Crete. Zeus grew stronger with each passing season, his movements becoming more controlled, his balance more precise, his awareness more complete. He learned to throw stones with accuracy, learned to track small animals across uneven ground, learned to move silently when needed. The Curities taught him without teaching, guiding without explaining, allowing discovery to shape understanding. Because some knowledge cannot be given, it must be earned, and Zeus earned it quickly, faster than any child should. Sometimes, during storms, Zeus would stand at the cave entrance and watch the sky, lightning flashing across distant clouds, thunder rolling through the mountains. The warriors stayed behind him, protective, concerned, but Zeus showed no fear. Instead, he watched the lightning with fascination, as though recognizing something familiar, something waiting, something unfinished. And Gaia understood the power within him had begun to stir, not yet awakened, not yet controlled, but present, growing, waiting. The prophecy had survived birth. Now it had survived childhood. And survival is the first victory of destiny. Cronus remained unaware, but not untouched. The disturbance within him deepened, growing heavier, more persistent, more undeniable. For somewhere in the world, a force was rising, and though he could not see it, he could feel it. The child of destiny continued to grow, hidden, protected, unstoppable. Time moved differently in the mountains of Crete. Seasons passed quietly. Storms came and went. Winds reshaped the cliffs. And the hidden child continued to grow. Zeus was no longer the silent child who wandered the caves in curiosity. He had grown taller, stronger, more deliberate in his movements. Where once he explored without direction, now he moved with purpose. The Curities noticed a change before he did. They saw it in the way he stood, the way he watched, the way he listened. He no longer moved like a child. He moved like someone preparing for something he did not yet understand. His strength had begun to surpass expectation. Even for a god, he could climb steeper rock than any of the warriors, leap wider gaps, endure longer journeys without rest. But strength alone was not what concerned them. It was control. Zeus moved with balance beyond his years. Each motion efficient, each step measured, each action intentional. He wasted no energy, made no careless movements, as though instinct guided him. One morning, as mist hung low over the cliffs, Zeus stood watching the sea. The horizon stretched endlessly before him, gray sky meeting dark water. The wind blew strongly that day, sharp and restless. The Curities stood behind him at a distance, always present, always watchful. Zeus lifted his hand slowly, not in command, not in gesture, simply lifting it into the air, and the wind shifted. At first it seemed coincidence, a natural change in direction, but Zeus lowered his hand, and the wind settled. He raised it again. The air stirred, not violently, not dramatically, but unmistakably. The warriors exchanged uneasy glances. Zeus seemed unaware, as though the moment held no meaning. But Gaia felt it, through stone, through soil, through the deep places of the earth. The power had begun to awaken, not fully, not consciously, but undeniably. From that day forward, the world around Zeus began to respond. Small things at first, barely noticeable. A sudden breeze when none had blown before. A flicker of light across distant clouds. A tremor in still water. Nothing that would reveal him. Nothing that would expose the hidden child. But enough to confirm what Gaia already knew. The prophecy was no longer waiting. It was advancing. Zeus began to feel something new within himself. A sense difficult to name. Not strength. Not emotion. Not thought. Potential. Sometimes he would feel it rising suddenly, like pressure behind his ribs, like energy moving beneath his skin. It never lasted long, and he never spoke of it. But the Curities saw the signs. They saw how still he would become when it happened, how focused his eyes would grow, how the air seemed heavier around him. They did not understand it fully, but they understood enough. The child they guarded would not remain a child for long. Meanwhile, far from Crete, Cronus' unease became something darker. He no longer dismissed the disturbances he felt, no longer explained them away, no longer trusted the quiet of his kingdom. He walked his halls at night, alone, listening. Sometimes he would stop without reason, as though hearing something distant, something too faint to identify. Nothing answered, but the silence itself felt suspicious. Cronus began sending watchers across distant lands. Messengers searching for irregularities, for signs, for disturbances. None returned with answers, but uncertainty does not require evidence. It feeds on possibility. Cronus' thoughts returned again and again to the prophecy. A child would overthrow him. 6 times he had prevented it. 6 times he had acted. 6 times he had preserved order. And yet, the unease remained. He began to question what he had once believed unquestionable. Could prophecy hide? Could fate deceive? Could inevitability wait? These thoughts disturbed him deeply, because doubt weakened certainty. And certainty had always been his shield. Far away, Zeus continued to grow. His movements became faster, more precise, more controlled. He learned to fight with wooden weapons, then real ones. The Curetes trained him cautiously, never pushing too hard, never revealing too much. But Zeus learned quickly, faster than any warrior they had known. Within months, he matched their skill. Within seasons, he surpassed many of them, not through strength alone, but awareness. He anticipated movements before they happened, adjusted before attacks landed, moved before decisions were spoken, as though instinct guided him toward victory. And instinct is the language of gods. Storms grew more frequent around the mountains. Or perhaps they only seemed that way. Lightning flashed across distant skies. Thunder rolled through the valleys. Zeus watched every storm, always watching, always listening. Something inside him stirred whenever the sky broke open. Something ancient, something waiting, something inevitable. Gaia felt the tension building, felt the pressure rising within the world. The hidden child had become something new, not merely a survivor, not merely a possibility, a force. Cronus remained unaware, but not untouched. The disturbance within him deepened, growing heavier, more persistent, more undeniable. For somewhere in the world, a force was rising, and though he could not see it, he could feel it. The child of destiny continued to grow, hidden, protected, unstoppable. The mountains of Crete had shaped him, stone had hardened him, silence had strengthened him, and time had prepared him. Zeus was no longer a child. He stood taller now than many of the warriors who guarded him, his movements steady, his gaze focused, his presence undeniable. The caves that once felt vast now seemed smaller. The paths he once explored with wonder now felt familiar. The cliffs he once climbed with effort now felt easy beneath his hands. Growth demands change, and change demands movement. Zeus felt it more strongly with each passing season, a pull beyond the mountains, a sense that something waited for him in the distance, something unfinished, something inevitable. He did not yet know the name of Cronus, did not know the throne of Titans, did not know the prophecy that had shaped his life, but he felt the weight of destiny nonetheless. Sometimes he would stand alone at the highest cliff overlooking the sea, the wind rushing past him, the waves breaking far below, the horizon stretching endlessly into the unknown, and he would feel it, the stirring within him, the quiet pressure beneath his thoughts, the sense that the world was larger than the life he had known. The Curetes watched him carefully now, no longer merely guardians, witnesses. They had protected a child. Now they stood beside something greater. They spoke quietly among themselves, not of fear, not of doubt, but of inevitability. The hidden child would not remain hidden forever, and they knew their role was nearing its end. Training became more serious, more deliberate, more demanding. Zeus welcomed it, not with pride, not with arrogance, but with determination. Weapons felt natural in his hands. Movement came easily, balance instinctive. He learned to strike with precision, defend with control, advance with confidence. But fighting skill alone would not shape his future. Something deeper stirred within him. Storms gathered more frequently around the mountains, dark clouds forming suddenly, thunder rolling through the valleys, lightning striking distant peaks. The Curetes noticed a pattern. Storms often followed Zeus. Or perhaps Zeus followed storms. One evening, as the sky darkened unexpectedly, Zeus stood outside the cave entrance. The wind rose sharply, carrying the scent of rain and distant sea. The warriors called for him to return inside, but Zeus did not move. Lightning flashed across the sky, bright and sudden, illuminating the cliffs and mountains in stark white light. And in that instant, something changed. The pressure within him surged. Stronger than ever before, Zeus lifted his head, eyes fixed upon the storm. Thunder rolled across the mountains, deep and powerful, and Zeus stepped forward, not in fear, not in hesitation, but in recognition. The air crackled faintly around him, barely visible, barely audible, but present. The warriors felt it, a subtle tension in the air, like the moment before lightning strikes. Zeus raised his hand slowly. The wind surged, stronger, sharper. Lightning flashed again, closer this time. The mountains echoed with thunder, and Zeus felt the energy move through him. Not painful, not overwhelming, but powerful, like something ancient awakening. For a brief moment, the storm seemed to answer him. Then the energy faded. The wind weakened. The thunder moved farther away. Zeus lowered his hand slowly, breathing steady, expression calm, as though nothing unusual had happened. But the Curetes knew. The hidden child had become something more. The power of the sky had begun to recognize its master. Far away, Cronus felt it, not clearly, not completely, but unmistakably. A disturbance unlike the others. Sharper, closer, more real. He rose from his throne suddenly, the sensation passing through him like distant thunder. For a brief moment, fear returned. Not the fear of prophecy, not the fear of possibility, the fear of presence. Something existed. Somewhere, something growing, something powerful. Cronus walked the halls of his palace with renewed urgency, his thoughts racing, his certainty shaken. For the first time in many years, he considered a possibility he had long dismissed. What if one had survived? The thought unsettled him deeply, because if one had survived, everything he had done had failed, and failure invites destiny. He ordered new searches across distant lands. Messengers dispatched in every direction, watchers stationed in remote regions. But destiny does not reveal itself through ordinary signs. Crete remained hidden, silent, protected. Zeus continued to grow, stronger with each passing season, more aware, more prepared. He no longer belonged only to the caves, nor only to the mountains. The world beyond called to him, and soon he would answer. Narrator, slow, powerful closing. Cronus ruled the present, but the future was no longer hidden. It was rising, and when the storm finally broke, the age of Titans would begin to end.